Welcome back, Flare community. Today we have a very special video, and this is the official publication of the Flare Improvement Proposal 01, which talks about the distribution and the inflation rate and also the incentive pool structure of FLR. So we heard about this today on Twitter, and what we're going to do in this video is read through the document and digest it, and I'll give you my opinions right at the end. So let's jump in. FIP01, Flare Distribution, Inflation and Incentive Pool Proposal. Now, just before we start, this is a proposal, meaning a suggestion, which all of the holders of FLR can actually vote on. And there are some restrictions in terms of the Flare Foundation voting on such a proposal, but we're going to check that out in a moment. This proposal is issued by the Flare Foundation and, if passed, consists of a set of changes that will be made to the distribution and inflation of Flare's blockchain native token, FLR, together with changes in payout structure and recipients of the cross-chain incentive pool. Now, just a quick rewind as well, the cross-chain incentive pool is a pool of FLR which is destined to be received by those who mint F assets. And this is basically an incentive for people to do so and bring liquidity onto the Flare network. Flare Improvement Proposal 1, or FIP1, is critically important for the long-term success of Flare. Much has changed in the last 2 years. Flare is a radically larger project than what was initially envisioned. Instead of serving a single community with a single utility, that's XRP, Flare's protocols are now on the path to provide developers with scalable smart contracts, truly decentralized price feeds, secure state acquisition from other blockchains, superior bridging for smart contract and non-smart contract assets, secured data relay, and horizontal scaling through a fully interoperable multi-chain ecosystem, starting with Songbird. Now, that was a mouthful. Flare will present developers with a single, simple, coherent stack on which to build applications that are fully cross-chain capable. And this is really where Flare gets its secret sauce from, this idea of deploying once and being able to integrate and be interoperable with many other networks. To allow Flare to thrive, the token distribution, which was designed to build participation from a single community with a single utility, needs to change such that it offers participants from any chain and new entrants to the space an equal chance to become a participant in the Flare ecosystem and help it grow. And this really is one of the biggest incentives for me from this proposal. The idea that people from these external networks, which may not have been as privileged to receive the initial airdrop, are still going to be able to participate and receive some of this distribution. This proposal has been designed to preserve existing airdrop recipients' foundational place in the ecosystem and put those coming fresh to the ecosystem on equal footing. This maximized the benefit for the most number of people within the active Flare community and ecosystem, supporting Flare's ambition to connect the decentralized economy and drive broader adoption of Web3 in general. It can help create a more balanced playing field where all the different ecosystem which Flare will help connect would have an equal incentive to grow and participate with Flare. And basically what this means is, it's going to allow a lot more participation in the network, and it's going to encourage other people to actually use Flare. Now, I have a sneaking suspicion that the majority of the audience here on the Flare community channel are XRP holders, and you guys, as well as me, have a foundational interest in the Flare network. So here we have a summary of the 4 important benefits and changes. So if FIP01 is successfully passed by the community, individuals will no longer be reliant on distribution from centralized platforms or centralized exchanges. If the level of staking on Fleur is anywhere near the industry average, then those who delegate will receive more Fleur tokens via the new proposal than the current system. So if you are actively participating, this is going to benefit you. This proposal substantially lowers inflation and reduces the long-term supply, meaning those that participate could end up with a meaningfully larger share of the token ownership, as they would have more tokens with fewer in circulation. And we're going to look at some very interesting graphs down below. Fleur Improvement Protocol 01 enables anyone holding FLR to delegate and receive a share of the distribution. This makes the distribution transferable, generates a strong incentive to reduce excess liquidity, and treats all those who hold FLR, however they obtain it, equally. In some tax jurisdictions, this proposal makes it possible to defer the tax event of realizing FLR while still receiving the remainder of the token distribution, allowing better control over the timing of the tax liability. Under the current distribution method, you will receive FLR each month, and it's just going to be unloaded onto you, right? In this proposal, we actually have a look at the ability to defer this and choose when you want to receive it. If you want to receive it in a large amount, or maybe postpone the time that you receive it until the next financial year. The choice is a lot more flexible. So here we go, we're going to jump onto the full proposal here. The initial FLR distribution method would remain the same. The initial 15% of FLR tokens will be distributed to existing airdrop recipients. This equates to 4,287,738,205 FLR. Now, before we go any further, this initial distribution is going to still be received at the place where you held XRP at the time of the snapshot. If you held XRP at the time of the snapshot on an exchange, it will still be going to that exchange. If you were self-custodying XRP and you went through the claim process at the time of the snapshot, you will receive FLR in the same wallet which you received SGB. But instead of connecting to the Songbird network, you will be connecting to the Fleur network, right? Now, let's look at some of the important modifications that this proposal would create. FTSO, Fleur Time Series Oracle Delegation Incentive Pool, would basically distribute the remaining tokens, which is around 25 billion FLR, monthly in uniform increments over 3 years to those that wrap the FLR tokens. And it's important to note that wrapping is being a proxy for delegation, okay? The second change would be to reduce the current inflation scheme of 10% per annum, which is calculated on the total fully diluted supply of FLR, to 10% in year 1, 7% in year 2, 5% in year 3 onwards, with a cap at 5 billion FLR tokens per annum calculated on available supply instead of fully diluted supply. Now, that's a little bit of a mouthful and it may be hard to envisage, but it basically means that the distribution will be much more linear instead of exponential. And like I said before, we're going to have a look at some charts in a short moment. The third chain is cross-chain incentive pool. This is the incentive pool for F assets. The proposed change would be to structure the 20 billion FLR incentive pool to pay out the lower of either 3% per annum, which is calculated on available supply, or 10% of the pool per annum. Fourth change that this proposal would implement if passed would be the weight of the cross-chain incentive pool payout equally to all value bridged to Fleur, and using Fleur secured bridging such as Layer Cake. So we did have the Litecoin incentive pool, which was its own segregated pool, right? And in this proposal, they're saying that all F assets and bridged assets should be treated equally and share a small part of this incentive pool, distributed equally between all. Fifth change, weight inflation of 70% to the FTSO, 20% to validators, and 10% to the default state connector set. Sixth, and finally, personal delegation accounts enable an escrow tool that allows participants to delay realization of earnings from the Fleur time series Oracle delegation and hence the ongoing FTSO rewards until a later date. And as mentioned before, in certain jurisdictions, this will have positive tax benefits. So this is a proposal, and the proposal requires a vote of all of the FLR holders. So let's talk about some of the voting information. Let's start with the vote timing. The vote will take place when either 66% of the initial tokens that are eligible to vote are in the hands of their intended recipients and can be used to vote, or should this not happen swiftly enough, on January the 14th, 2023. There is going to be a notice period, and once the vote threshold is triggered, there will be a 1-week notice period followed by a 1-week period to cast the vote. And don't worry, I'm going to keep you guys up to date on all of this, so be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. There's going to be an interim period, and this is going to be a period between the token distribution event and the vote. So network inflation will be calculated as per this proposal, which is in item 2, and there will be no further token distributions. Let's talk about the vote metrics. The vote needs a simple majority of those who vote to pass. Vote eligibility. The proposal may be voted on by all token holders with the exception of the Fleur Foundation and Fleur Venture Capitalist Fund, due to this entity deriving some of its token balance from the Fleur Foundation. So this is very fair, and the Fleur Foundation will not be participating. So all Fleur-related entities, including the Fleur Foundation and Fleur VC Fund, neither of which may vote as we just mentioned earlier, will have escrowed their tokens, distributing over the 36 months prior to the vote. This makes their votable tokens for this proposal equal to 15% of their intended final balance. No Fleur-related entity, employee, or founder may use the tokens derived from their position to earn any part of the token distribution through the FTSO. These are legal requirements in place, contingent on the proposal passing, with severe sanctions giving up their entire FLR stake to ensure that this does not happen. It's important to be clear that they may, as with any network participant, use tokens not obtained through their official position to earn part of the distribution. So this is really good for us as a community. The entity, the employees, and the founders can't actually participate to earn more FLR with the FLR which they have initially received. So let's have a quick peek at the reasoning behind this proposal. And I think this is a great way to show why this proposal is so important. It wants to achieve the following objectives: improve the long-term token economics, reward existing participants and incentivize new participants, to better manage liquidity, to improve the tokenomics for new ecosystem entrants, enable the distribution of FLR to be transferable, alleviate the risk of exchanges and centralized finance platforms for token holders, reward infrastructure providers and those that generate value for the network by enabling them to vest FLR whilst constraining inflation, and finally, enable tax deferment such that those that participate in the ecosystem are not unduly penalized. So the actual blog goes through all of this in detail, but in the interest of keeping this video fairly short, I want to run through some of the charts which really highlight the difference between the current system and the new proposed system. The first one being this one here, the token supply. So obviously we have the current system in red and the green one, which is the proposed distribution method. Now the line in red really highlights how exponential the token supply can really get. You can see in comparison through the first 3 years it's very similar, but as time goes by, the red line is actually on an exponential curve, and that means that the token supply will increase more and more each year, where in comparison with the new proposed change, the green line, you can see that it is a much more linear line, meaning the amount of new tokens coming into circulation is very predictable, and I think this is a great move. The second chart that I want to highlight is this token supply growth. So this is on a percentage base, and you can see that on the left hand side, the blue line representing the current growth chart and the teal line representing the proposed supply growth chart. They both start very similarly, with most of the distribution of FLR happening within the first 3 years. The important thing on this chart to highlight is what's happening after the initial distribution has taken place. Now, if you look on the teal line, which represents the new proposal, you can see that after the initial distribution, the growth supply actually decreases, and this is great for you as an early adopter. It means that while the network is young, most of the FLR is distributed, and over time, this curve flattens out. So great for you as an early adopter, and it still has some sort of growth for those who are late to the party. The next chart that I want to bring you to your attention is the distribution through the Flare Time Series Oracle as a percentage of available supply. So the first 36 months, there's going to be a larger distribution, and initially that's going to be very high. As you can see, as time goes on, you can see that the percentage of the available supply that is distributed is decreased over time. And this is great again for you as an early adopter. And the next chart that I want to bring to your attention is titled Non-Airdrop Recipient Obtaining 150 million FLIR at Day 1. What this chart really highlights is the fact that people from external networks can join the FLIR network ecosystem and actually retain a large percentage of the FLR. Something else important to mention here is that the less people that delegate, the higher your ownership of available supply. So if only 20% of the people are actually delegating, you're going to receive the FLR, and the other FLR is actually going to be burned as mentioned in a previous tweet, but you're going to receive something and the other 80% who aren't delegating will not receive anything. You can see with the new proposal, since FLR distribution is based on how much FLR you delegate, you can see that your ownership of the available supply would be much higher than the current distribution, which distributes regardless of if you choose to participate in the network or not. So these are all the charts which really stood out to me, and there is a lot more information in this proposal. It's very long and I wanted to try and keep this video concise, but if you do want to read the full proposal yourself, I have left a link in the description of this video. So what we're going to do now is jump to a quick summary of the changes. The main change being that the FLR distribution will be based on how much you delegate. The initial airdrop is still going to be 15%, and the distribution period is going to remain the same at around 3 years. The proposal also introduces a change to reduce the current inflation. It proposes a 10% inflation rate on year 1, 7% in year 2, and 5% in year 3 onwards, with a cap of 5 billion new FLR tokens being created each year. Third change is the cross-chain incentive pool, formerly known as the F asset pool, which will distribute FLR as an incentive mechanism to all the assets connected to the FLIR network equally. The actual payouts of this is also changing to either 3% per annum or 10% of the pool per annum, whichever is lowest. The fifth change is where these inflation rewards actually go, and the proposal is to have 70% going to the FTSO and the delegators, 20% to the validators, and 10% to the default state connector set. The final proposed change would be to integrate a personal delegation account, which is going to enable users who delegate to refrain and pause delegation and basically time when they would like to actually receive the FLR they have earned. And this is great for certain jurisdictions and could have a potential benefit for tax purposes. Final thing that I would like to remind you is that the voting will actually take place once 66% of the initial FLR is available to vote, meaning it's been moved off of the exchanges, or on January the 14th, 2023, whichever is soonest. So that's pretty much it. I'm really happy about this proposal. I think it's great, and I'm really looking forward to see the community pull together and see what the outcome actually is. Again, if you would like to read the full document, please feel free to check the link in the description. Also, if you enjoyed this information and want to stay up to date with everything Fleur and Songbird, please feel free to subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, I'm out.
Mission Control, we have liftoff.